So, this gentleman, Tim Bray, is considered the father of XML. And Tim Bray sat back and said, you know what, I like the idea of RSS, but Dave Weiner and Netscape constantly going back and forth. We need a way to standardize this. And so Tim Bray and a number of others came up with an Atom standard, which is an IETF standard. The IETF is the same organization, that publishes these RFCs on URIs and MIME types and everything else. And so Atom brings you all the power of RSS, but it's also a standardized way to manage that. RSS also has one other problem, and that is very RPC oriented. RSS defines how you get those entries, but it doesn't define how to add new entries, or delete entries, or update existing entries. And so RSS is very good for pulling down a feed, but not so good for the other CRUD methods. And so what Atom provides is a way for us to do that. We can now say that SOAP is an SOA implementation, and Atom is an ROA implementation, because it gives us the verbs, the get, the put, the post, and the delete in order to do these kinds of things. And so Atom is one standardized way. As I said at OpenLogic, we used Atom as a format because as we were pulling these things down, we could define different MIME types inside of it. We knew that Atom wasn't a format that was thrashing about. We knew that Atom was a standard and very stable. There are many other people who are using Atom as well. Little company you might have heard of called Google. Do you have Google here? Yeah, of course. In December of 2006, Google officially deprecated their SOAP APIs. They said there's nothing wrong with the SOAP APIs. It's the product that was our first API. It inspired a lot of our other services. But you have to realize that this is 1999 technology. And we're sitting here in 2009. 10 years later, we're looking for an API that reflects the modern sensibilities, the best practices of current software development. And so Google deprecated its SOAP API and has rolled out all of its new APIs in a RESTful way. They call it GData. But what GData, Google data, actually is a Google set of APIs that provide an RSS format for read-only data. You can get an RSS feed for your calendar and some other things like that. But if you're going to interact with any of these APIs, you need to understand Atom. Because Atom is actually the preferred API. So for your calendar, the way you add new calendar entries programmatically, the way you update calendar entries, the way you delete entries from your calendar is all through Atom. If we had a live internet connection, I would show you some of this stuff. If you are ever looking to implement a RESTful interface in your organization, I highly encourage you to go read the documentation. Any of them would be good, but specifically the Calendar API, because the Calendar API will talk about authentication. There are public calendar feeds you can get that anyone can request, and there are private feeds where you need to log in. Obviously, you need to be authenticated in order to update and delete entries. And so these are very well documented, and it's a wonderful way of looking at a RESTful Atom set of web services that you can implement and you can emulate, you can imitate in your organization as well. Excellent set of documentation. So, Twitter also has an Atom feed. And this is usually how I like to end the presentation. How many of you are on Twitter? Have you been twittering? Have you been tweeting with hash JDD and things like that? Well, if I would have had a live internet connection, I would have been able to see what you were tweeting right now. Unfortunately, the internet connection is down. But once again, we can see the type of request I would make. Search Twitter.com, search.atom, and the query would be JDD there. or the username ScottDavis99, or whatever you wanted to query out of that. And once again, you would see it was exactly like the RESTful geocoder example we did earlier. It was exactly the same as the rhyming geocoder that we did. It would have been exactly the same as the Yahoo weather RSS feed that we were pulling down. This would be a RESTful API that we could pull down and see all the tweets that have a certain keyword in them. Go ahead and try it when you get back home. It's really fun being able to get this stuff programmatically as well as through the web UI. So, in summary, which is the best word to hear in a keynote, isn't it? In summary, in conclusion, you're almost ready to go home now. Yeah? We see that ROA, Atom is an ITF standard, that it's RESTful, that it's a syndication format, that it's all of these kinds of things. We now understand the arguments of REST versus, or SOAP versus. It's entirely appropriate to say, well, let's evaluate SOAP for our organization, and let's evaluate Atom for our organization. It's entirely appropriate to say, let's take a service-oriented approach, an RPC-oriented approach, or let's take a RESTful approach, a resource-oriented approach. And I'm not suggesting that one is better than the other or worse than the other or always appropriate. But what you will find is out in the wild, the Googles, the Twitters, the Facebooks, the YouTubes, the Flickrs, all of these Web 2.0 darlings are providing you a RESTful API into your services. And so if you look at the trends as things are going, SOAP is not dead. SOAP isn't going away tomorrow. But SOAP is on the downward slide of the adoption curve, and REST is on the upward slide. And so every organization needs to decide if they want to be implementing the last decades, the last centuries APIs, or if you want to be implementing the next decades APIs. And I certainly think REST falls into the latter category. Did you enjoy yourself here this evening? Yes. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I really do appreciate it.